Hey everyone, Todd from Sideshow Effects once again, and in this video I'm going to give you a navigation of our Premiere Pro profiles for the new Stream Deck Plus device. So in this video we're going to cover using the dials for media management, navigating the timeline, and performing trim functions. We're going to use the dials for nudging and slip and sliding your clips. We'll navigate markers and keyframes and adjust those keyframes. We'll work with graphic layers easier, and we'll be able to adjust effect parameters a lot quicker to see how you can enhance your multicam sessions, and we'll show you how you can work with captions. At this point, I assume you've already gone through the PDF and the installation part, or you've watched our installation video. Either way, at this point, you should have the profiles loaded on your Stream Deck device, and all the different profile pages are linked to each other. So once you've got that going, let's dive in and we'll take a tour. Okay, so on the main page, you can see we've got 8 profiles we're presented with here. Now we're going to just take them one at a time going through. So let's start with the Manage profile. And this profile is designed for the stage of your production where you're ingesting material, you're organizing material, exporting, that sort of thing. Just all the management that comes with part of your production. Now there are 7 pages in this particular profile. If you're not too familiar with the Stream Deck Plus device, how we navigate those pages is you see the dial strip that's here. Well, this acts as a navigation tool as well. By swiping to the left or right, we can swipe through the different pages in each of these profiles. And I will point out that in every one of these profiles there is a small indicator on the bottom left that indicates what page you're on. So in this case we're on page 1 of 7 pages in this profile. So by swiping this, if we swipe to the left, we're going to be going through the pages sequentially, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to the first page. And of course swiping to the right does the reverse of this. Now I'm not going to go through all the different keys, the 8 keys above. You can see that they're all different commands. You can explore those on your own. This is really more focused on the dials because this is a new feature for the Stream Deck devices. And we want to feature what the commands are that we've programmed into these dials. Now if you take a look of the way we've laid out the graphics for the dial strip itself, you'll see there's large icons. Now the large icon is the action that will take place when you rotate the dial. And you'll see that there is a small text beside those icons. That is the text of the rotary action. You'll also see that there are small icons in each section as well. Now those icons indicate the action that will take place when you press on that dial strip in that section. So in the case of the second one here, you can see when we rotate the dial, it will give us the function of previous and next clip, which I'm going to demonstrate in a second. But by tapping on the dial strip, that will give us a mark in action. So let's just go into Premiere and let's just see how that works first of all. So I'll go into I've got a bin here of media and I've got it on icon view. If I click on a clip here, you can see on our first icon, we don't have a rotary action assigned to this dial, but we do have a push action assigned, and that's the play button. So by tapping on that part of the dial strip, that will invoke play on this thumbnail. You can see we're playing, and pressing it again, of course, will stop the play. Now on the second one, you can see we've got the small icon is indicating a mark in. Pressing that, as you can see, created a mark in point on our thumbnail. Now let's see the rotary dial in action itself. So we can see we've got a clip selected here. We can navigate through the different selections just by rotating this dial backwards and forwards. Now the dial next to it extends the selection left or right. And the fourth dial, as the name says, it will increase or decrease the size of the thumbnails themselves. Now on this particular profile, the dial strip does not change. It remains the same. Those functions stay the same for every one of the 7 pages in this profile. Well, that's not the case for most of the profiles in this pack, and we're going to explore that in a second. So let's go back to the main, and we're going to dive into the editing profile. Yeah, as you can see by the indication on the bottom left, this has 8 pages. We're currently sitting on the first page of 8 pages. Now you'll see that the first function indicates that it's a shuttle function. By rotating, we enter into shuttle mode, similar to the JKL keys. And by rotating, each time I rotate, it will go faster. And then I'm rotating the other direction. And by tapping on the dial strip above it, acts as if it was a space bar, where it's a play function, so play and stop. Now this is a good time to point out that there is a feature in the new Stream Deck Plus devices that allows us to stack commands in a single rotary dial. And it's called exactly that, a dial stack. So what that means is if I press in the rotary dial itself, it will then present to me a different action. So now you see we changed from shuttle to jog. Now the action, when I rotate, it now performs a jog function, forwards and backwards. Pressing it again gives us a scroll action. And then pressing it once more takes us back to shuttle. And the play function remains for all 3 of those commands. Now to the second dial, you can see as indicated, it's indicating that it's previous and next edit point when rotated. You can see we're moving to the different edit points. Now I'm going to create a couple of in and out points here, because you can see when I press on that, it's indicating that it will go to the in point, which it does. This one also is a dial stack, and also I should point out that you know this is also a dial stack because you see a little dial stack icon right there. So when we press in this dial, it changes to previous or next clip. So it will select the clip that when we move to each one of them. It moves to the edit point and selects that clip. Now on the third rotary dial, and let's say that I have my program monitor selected. By pressing on this makes the source monitor active, and then by rotating the dial, I can rotate through the different clips that I had loaded into my source monitor. Now the fourth dial is a nudge clip rotary action. So by selecting a clip in the timeline and rotating this, we are nudging our clip backwards and forwards. And that's a fine function. You can see it's moving finely. If I press in, this is a nudge course function. So now it moves in larger increments. And also pressing on this button will mark the clip we're currently sitting on top of. So that's a function of the first page in editing. Swipe to the second, and you can see our commands are different, except for the first dial. The first dial in most of these profiles remains the same. We always try and give the shuttle, the jog, and the scroll wheel on the first rotary dial in all these profiles. But now we have some trim functions presented to us. So as we're sitting on an edit, we can enter into trim mode by clicking this button. We can enter trim mode there, and you can see we go into a rolling edit. And by rotating this dial, we can perform a left-right trim. Now rotating the third dial will change the trim type itself. With each rotation click, we're changing the type of trim. And if you want to just jump to a rolling edit very quickly, you tap this button. Our fourth dial gives us our slip and slide function. So we have slip already up here, and so we can slip the clip within its beginning and end boundary. Pressing gives us a coarse function of slip in larger increments. Pressing once again takes us into slide mode. So now we can slide the clip. Pressing again slides coarsely. And pressing on the fourth rotary dial gives us a play around function, so it plays around the current cursor position. Okay, so now we're going to move to the third page. Once again, first rotary dial remains as shuttle, jog and scroll. This dial strip will give us the functions of being able to enlarge or reduce the size of our video or audio tracks. If we like a particular setting that we've got, pressing on the fourth one will allow us to save that preset. And then if I make an adjustment here, by pressing on one, because I just saved it as preset 1, it will recall that height preset that I just saved. And of course, if we had a preset 2, tapping on this one would load preset height 2. All right, moving on to page 4. Shuttle is the same as always. Second one, you can see it's a previous edit point, which is what we've seen before, but you can see that the small icon is indicating that it's a copy function. So in the second, third, and fourth, for pressing actions, we have copy, paste attributes, remove attributes. On the third rotary dial, you can see that we have the ability to move the track, the video track, up and down vertically. So if we have a track selected, rotating the dial, we'll move it up and down. It creates a new track if there isn't one there. And of course the fourth dial is our nudge functions yet again. Swiping again. Once again, shuttle's on the first, and the second dial gives us ability to navigate markers. Now if I add a marker, I can add a marker by tapping on this button, and because I had the clip selected, it added it to our clip. If there's no clip selected and I hit add marker, it will add it to our timeline, and I can navigate to different markers using this dial. The third rotary dial, as the name suggests, takes us to different gaps in our timeline. And pressing the action here will remove any gaps. I won't do that at this point. Now the fourth rotary dial, you can see, allows us to zoom in and zoom out on our current timeline. Pressing fits the timeline to our current view. And because this is a dial stack, we can press this, and well, what I'll do is I'll zoom in first, and this will be easier to demonstrate. Now we press. When rotating this, this will change to the next screen. So it changes left and right to the next part of the timeline that is just off screen. Right, and pressing again will fit the timeline to our screen. Navigating one more. Once again, the first and second remain the same. These are commonly used functions. As you can see, this dial strip is the same as the dial strip on page 1. If we go to page 7, we can see we have our trim tools again. Page 8, trim tools again, and then back to page 1. At this point, I'll hop into trim, and these have the same trim functions as was previously demonstrated. And we have 3 pages of actions, and the dial strip remains the same because those are the important trim functions that we need for here. Click main, we go back into editing, and one more time out to the main page. And that's editing. Now we're going to move on to the audio profile. The first and second are the same as we've seen before, and the third, the nudge frame, is moved from the fourth rotary dial to the third. Same function. We're able to nudge our clips around. Well, the fourth dial allows us to raise and lower our selected clip's volume. And the press icons are go to in, mark clip, and go to out. Swipe to the second page of the 7 pages. We have our familiar trim dial strip. And then on the third page, we have our track heights, which we've seen before. We've seen this page before, and the marker page in the zoom. A lot of these repeat what we saw in the editing profile. And back to page 1. Now we can go to keyframe here. You can either access keyframe through the audio or through the main page. Now this gives us 4 pages dedicated to working with keyframes. Once again, some familiar actions: video track height and audio track height. Now we can get into some keyframe rotary actions. So by rotating this dial, this will move our currently selected keyframe up and down, and pressing this action will play around the current cursor position. Rotating the third dial will move the keyframe dial left or right, and the fourth dial will navigate between our different keyframes. Swiping over to page 3 gives us access to the audio keyframe adjustments. So by rotating the first one, I can raise and lower a selected keyframe's value. I can move it left and right, very similar to the video, and navigate to the different keyframes on my clip. And onto the fourth page, it's a repeat of our previous page with our track heights. Back out takes us to the main page, and we can hop into graphics and titles. So we're in graphics and titles here now, and I'm going to create a new title by pressing on this button here. It creates a new title layer for us. Now the one beside it will create a rectangle layer. And now the one beside that, it would allow us to create a layer from a file. I'm not going to do that at the moment. Now we've got the gray one selected right now, and by rotating this we can bring it to the top of the stack, put it to the bottom, that sort of thing. And we can select the next layer, which is yellow, and we can move it up or down the stack. So it allows you to navigate your different layers in your essential graphics. Swiping to the second page gives us some functionality for text. So I'm just going to shut off our shape layers and just select our text for now. Now with our text layer selected, rotating this dial will increase and decrease the font size. Now you see it's indicated that it's a fine adjustment. If we click on this, we can change it to a coarse adjustment, and now the change is more dramatic. Now if we just do a line break in here, and I found that we need to click outside, we need to click its layer and not in the program window for letting to work properly. So there's letting fine, and pressing again gives us letting coarse. Now if we want to kern, we need to select the way you would in Photoshop, select in between 2 characters, and then you can adjust the kerning. We were trying to adapt kerning to a dial, but for whatever reason Premiere is having issues with kerning, so therefore we left it to the buttons. Hopefully in a future update they'll fix this and we can apply it to the dials. Now I'll turn my layers back on. And if we are working in the program monitor, we can then rotate our fourth dial to zoom in and zoom out when we want to do some detailed work. And of course, if we're zoomed all the way in, pressing this key fits the contents to our program monitor. Once again, the same page of layer controls. On the fourth page, we have access to some nudge functions. Select one of my object layers, and then using the vertical rotate function, we can move it up and down, and we can move it side to side. And of course, pressing on these will change them to fine controls as well. And the same zoom program monitor key is available on this page. Now this is a graphics and titles profile, so it's not limited to just essential graphics. We can also have some control over effects. So in this clip, I've got a color balance effect applied. And I can bounce through all the different parameter controls here with these two rotary dials. Now I'll show you what I mean. We start by clicking on any one of these live parameters. So we'll click on shadow red balance, and then we go to our stream deck, and I can adjust that value up or down. And this, of course, is indicated as a coarse function, so it's moving it in increments of 10. Pressing in once is a fine function. It'll move it in increments of 1. Once more is ultra fine. It will move it in increments of 0.1 for each rotation click. Now, that's allowing us to access that first parameter. To get to the other parameters, the dial next to it will take us up or down, whichever effect we want to control. Now this is true of any effect in Premiere. We can click on the first one, and then we can adjust and navigate through all the other ones. Final page, once again, are layer controls. And then back to our main page. Now we have a line profile that gives us a lot of the same functions. And layer controls, nudge controls, and our parameters. Now you can see we have a color profile, and this takes advantage of lumetri. So if I have lumetri applied to a clip, I can bring open the lumetri dialog, and then just like I showed you in the effects palette, I can click on any one of these, and then I can start affecting the different parameters. And this will jump down to any live parameter that you are able to control. All right, and back out, and then back out to the main. We can enter into markers. Now markers is going to give us a lot of the same dial strip functionality that we saw in editing. You can see the edit points, the previous next marker in the zoom timeline, and that's the same on the second page. Multicam. So if you're dealing with a multicam project, this is where you're going to go. So the first page is of course familiar to us with some marker control, clip control. But on the second page, we can see we got some height presets. On the third page, we get into our cameras themselves. We can enable multicam view by pressing on our multicam in our program monitor. You can see we have the 3 cameras on this particular page. If we swipe over to our multicam cameras, we can change our camera at will, and even change if you've got more than one page. I added 2 pages of cameras here. I can just navigate to the second page, which has the other 2 cameras in this 5-camera shoot. And of course the select camera and cut camera pages work as you play on the fly. Also, as a handy little feature, we've got an add edit and an add edit to all when you click on the dial strip. Keyframe we already demonstrated. Now we're going to caption. Now I have some caption tracks loaded on a sequence here. So let's show those caption tracks. But on the third page, we can get into some caption functions. So this allows us to navigate the different captions that we have on a particular track. I only have one on this track, so I'm going to change my track. So you can see you can only have one caption track on at a particular time. So I'll go to my first caption track. And now because I have 3 captions on this line, I can then, or sorry, 4, I can navigate to the different captions. Pressing on this icon will also advance us to the next caption. And pressing on this one will change the caption track, whichever one you want enabled. And we have some height presets, and then we also have the previous next caption on this page as well. That's a quick navigation of all the different things that we've packed into this. We try to organize it in such a way that you have the tools available in whatever task you have to be performing at that particular time. But everybody works differently, and we encourage you to move things around to best suit your particular workflow. We do hope this new device with this new pack can really speed things up for you and make your editing sessions be a lot smoother and free you up for more creativity. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.